My name is Evan, and this happened to me in Pullman, Washington on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2020. I'm not someone who sees danger everywhere. If anything, I joke when I shouldn't. I downplay stuff because it feels embarrassing to admit you're scared of something that doesn't have a clear explanation. That night started the same way most nights did back then. Small, contained, pretending things were normal when they weren't. It was a low-key pandemic house party near College Hill. Nothing wild. Just a warm living room packed tighter than it should have been, loud music and cheap drinks in plastic cups. I went with my friend Drew. He had that older brother energy. The kind of guy who'd notice if you hadn't eaten and slide you a snack without making it weird. Midnight hit, and everyone did the usual routine. People yelled like volume alone could reset the year. Fireworks popped somewhere outside. Phone flashlights. A girl I barely knew hugged me and said, "We made it," like we'd survived something together. I was buzzed, but still aware. I felt the cold every time the door opened. I knew I had to walk back to campus housing because the morning wasn't magically canceled. We left around 12:15. Outside, Pullman felt unsettled. Fireworks in random directions. Distant shouting. Cars looping the same blocks like no one wanted to go home yet. The air bit hard when you breathed in. Drew pulled his hood up. "You good to walk back?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm not 12. "I'll still walk you," he said, already moving. That was just him. We headed toward campus, and after a few minutes he pointed toward the Greenbelt Trail, a wooded shortcut students used all the time. "We can shave 10 minutes if we cut through," he said. I laughed. "Nice. Shortcut through the woods on New Year's. Solid horror movie choice." "You watch too much creepy stuff," he said. We went anyway, because that's how normal decisions get you. The moment we hit the tree line, the sound changed. Fireworks became dull thumps. Street noise faded. The path was darker than I expected. Patches of snow and wet leaves blending into black. Our footsteps sounded too loud. Then I heard another set. I remember thinking it was just an echo. Then I realized the rhythm didn't match ours. It was behind us. I stopped without thinking. Drew stopped too. The footsteps stopped at the exact same time. We stood there listening. Wind in branches, nothing else. I forced a laugh. "Okay, whoever's back there, great job being creepy." Nothing answered. Drew started walking again, slower this time, and I followed. 2 steps later, the footsteps resumed. I tried to explain it away. Another student, same shortcut, normal. So I stepped off the path, pulling Drew with me like we were letting someone pass. We waited. No one passed. No shape moved ahead. No apology, no cough. The footsteps didn't move forward. They stayed back, like the person didn't want to be seen. Drew leaned in. "He's not trying to go anywhere." "What?" I whispered. "He's matching us." My phone buzzed. Some dumb group chat message with fireworks emojis. The screen lit my hands and jacket, just enough to deepen the darkness beyond it. Right then, I saw him. Not clearly. Just a silhouette between the trees off the trail. Not directly behind us, but parallel, like he'd been using the trees. He didn't move. It felt like he'd been waiting for the light. Drew's hand closed around my sleeve, like grounding. "We're done with the shortcut," he said quietly. We turned toward a side trail leading to a fence line and a service road. Somewhere there were apartment buildings. Lights. As soon as we changed direction, the silhouette shifted too. Drew bent down and grabbed a rock. I tried to sound casual. "Yo," I called out, forcing a laugh. "You good back there?" For a second, nothing. Then a voice came from the dark. Calm. Flat. "Keep walking." Drew didn't reply. He just started moving faster, pulling me with him. We broke out near a back lot. Snow piles. Dumpster smell. A metal gate rattling in the wind. Fireworks popped again, bright flashes that made the world blink. One flash lit him up. He was closer than he should have been. He looked like he'd already known where we'd end up. Average height, dark jacket, hood up, hands relaxed at his sides. The light died and he became a shape again. Drew dragged me toward the nearest apartment building. Exterior door, glass entry, buzzer panel. The door was locked. Drew hit the buzzer buttons like he was playing a broken piano. "Come on," he said. I picked a random name off the directory and yelled it like we were friends. "Jason, please." A voice snapped through the intercom. "What?" "Please," Drew said. "Someone's out here. Buzz us in." A pause. Then the door buzzed. We yanked it open and stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind us. The lobby smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking. It was the safest smell I'd ever noticed. Through the glass, I saw him on the sidewalk. He didn't run up, didn't try the door. He just watched us, long enough for something to sink in. The chase was never the point. After a minute, he turned and walked away between buildings like he was done. Police came later. Same questions. Did he touch you? Did he threaten you? What do you say? He told us to keep walking. He didn't need to do more. They drove around, came back with that look that means nothing's getting fixed. Probably someone messing around, one of them said. We nodded. I got home and sat on my bed in my coat, still hearing that voice. For weeks after, I avoided that path. No more shortcuts. No more joking about horror movie decisions. Because it didn't feel like we ran into him. It felt like midnight was his start time. I was living in a second-floor apartment on the north side of Spokane in December 2021. The kind of place that's always half full of grad students, short-term renters, and people who don't stay long enough to learn each other's names. I was 26, deep into grad school, and I'd made what felt like a responsible decision. I was staying in on New Year's Eve. No party, no crowds, no pretending I had energy I didn't have. My night was quiet in a boring way. A mug of tea that went cold. My laptop open to a draft I wasn't proud of. Notes scattered across the coffee table like evidence of effort. The TV was on low, mostly for noise. Outside was the opposite. By midnight, the neighborhood was loud in waves. Fireworks snapped and echoed between buildings. People yelled Happy New Year in bursts, then went quiet, then loud again. Car horns for no reason. Smoke drifted through the cracks in the windows. I remember looking at the clock when it flipped, 12:03 a.m., and thinking, okay, New Year. Same problems. Around 12:10, I heard something from the alley behind my building that didn't fit. At first, it was so faint, I thought it might be sound bleeding through the walls. Then it happened again. A noise that wasn't laughter, wasn't drunk yelling, and definitely wasn't celebration. It sounded like someone trying not to be loud. I walked into the kitchen and stood by the window. My apartment faced the alley at a bad angle. I could see the tops of dumpsters, a fence line, and part of a back parking area, but not the ground unless someone stepped into a narrow gap. I figured it was just holiday stuff. People argue on holidays. People cry. People get messy. Then I heard a word that didn't belong outside on New Year's Eve. Stop. It wasn't shouted. It was tight, like someone forcing it out. All my attention locked onto the window. I cracked it open an inch. Fireworks flashed above the buildings, lighting the alley. Underneath the noise, I heard it again, something like a plea. Maybe please. Maybe my brain filling in gaps. Sound does strange things in alleys. Another round of fireworks exploded, swallowing everything. Every time I thought I was sure, the noise came back. Loud, aggressive, perfectly timed. It felt like the city itself was helping cover something up. I stood there, waiting for silence. Then I heard it again. Clearer this time. Someone crying, cut short by another blast overhead. I grabbed my phone and opened the keypad like I was about to dial 911. And then I didn't. This is the part that still bothers me. My brain immediately started negotiating. What if it's a couple fighting? What if it's nothing and I'm overreacting? What if I call and it makes things worse? And underneath all of that was a quieter thought I didn't want to face. What if whoever's out there hears me? I texted my neighbor across the hall. We'd exchanged numbers once over a misdelivered package. "Do you hear anything outside in the alley?" No response. The clock read 12:12. For a moment, fireworks slowed, and I convinced myself it was nothing. Then there was a gap. Not long, maybe 2 seconds. In that quiet, I heard it clearly. A scream. Sharp, real, cut off mid-sound, like someone physically stopped it. My thumb hit call without thinking. The operator answered. 911, what's the address of your emergency? I gave my address. My voice sounded calm, which felt wrong. I think someone's in trouble in the alley behind my building, I said. I heard screaming. Can you see anyone? No, my window doesn't face the ground. Do you hear anything now? Fireworks exploded again, right on cue. I can't tell, I said, and hated how weak that sounded. She asked about the alley layout, lighting, gates, cameras. I answered what I could. It felt like failing a test. Then I heard footsteps outside, running, then stopping, then slower steps. The fireworks kept going, like protection. The operator said officers were on the way. Busy night, multiple calls. I stayed by the window, with the phone pressed to my ear and cold air seeping in. At one point, the footsteps stopped completely. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. It felt finished. Police arrived around 12:28. I watched flashlights sweep the alley. They checked behind dumpsters along the fence by the gate. They didn't stay long. One of them looked up, saw my window, and asked what I'd heard. A scream, I said. Did you see anyone? No. That word felt heavy. They asked the same questions again, took notes, and then left. The fireworks kept going like nothing had happened. The next morning, everything felt quiet in that post-holiday way. I went down to the alley because I couldn't stop myself. Behind the dumpster near the fence, I found small things half buried in slush. A plastic phone case back. A single cheap earring. Nothing dramatic. Nothing useful. Just proof that something had happened without enough evidence to matter. I called building management about cameras. They don't cover the alley, the woman said. Mostly entrances and parking. Were they recording? They should have been, unless there was a reboot. A reboot on New Year's Eve. I filed a report anyway. Gave times, details, what I found. The officer listened politely, like he'd heard this story before with no ending. For weeks after, fireworks still set something off in me. Not because of the noise, but because of what they can hide. The worst part wasn't the scream. It was how quickly my brain tried to convince me not to believe it. I still hear fireworks and think about how easy it is to bury something terrible inside a celebration. I was 16 when this happened, but it doesn't feel like something that stayed in the past. It still feels close, like a room I could walk back into if I wanted to. Same smells, same sounds, same sense that something small shifted and never fully went back. It was New Year's Eve, 2015 in Plano, Texas, and I wasn't doing anything special. No party, no friends over. Just me, my parents, a couch, snacks, and one of those countdown shows playing on TV. Teen New Year's Eve is mostly pretending you don't care. I had my phone in my hand, scrolling without reading, half listening to my parents argue about which performer was actually singing live. They were relaxed, loud in a comfortable way. My dad had a bowl of chips on his lap. My mom had a blanket pulled up to her shoulders. The house felt full. Our backyard was fenced in. 6-foot wooden fence, narrow yard, a gate that always squeaked unless you lifted the latch just right. It was one of those spaces you never really think about at night. It was just there. Fireworks started going off in the distance around 11. Normal stuff. Pops, booms, flashes over rooftops. Nobody paid attention. Then one went off behind our house. Not nearby, not down the street. Behind it. It was loud enough to rattle the glass on the back window. My mom stopped talking mid-sentence. Seriously, my dad said, annoyed. Already? Probably neighbors, my mom replied, still calm, more irritated than worried. Another one went off. Same place, same closeness. My dad sat up straighter and walked to the back window, pulling the blinds aside just enough to look out. The porch light was off, so the yard was mostly dark, lit only by spillover from a neighbor's floodlight. "See?" he said after a second. "Behind the fence. Just idiots." But he didn't let the blinds fall closed. I stood up without really meaning to and drifted closer, stopping a few steps back. Another firework popped, closer than before. Not just sound, but pressure, like it punched the air. This one felt angled wrong. Fireworks from the street echoed differently. This felt like it was coming from the narrow strip along the fence line, where there's just enough space for someone to stand without being seen unless you're looking directly. "There's someone back there," I said. My dad didn't look at me. "There isn't." Another firework launched, brighter this time, and for half a second the yard lit up. I saw movement near the far fence, like someone stepping out of deeper shadow. My dad's hand lifted instinctively, blocking me from the glass. "I didn't imagine that," I said, quieter now. He didn't answer right away. Another firework went off, smaller, like a loud crack, and lit the yard again. This time the shape was clearer. A person stood near the back corner, tucked where the shadows were thickest. And what bothered me wasn't that someone was there, it was how still they were. They weren't celebrating. They weren't moving around. They weren't setting off fireworks quickly or excitedly. They were spacing them out, waiting between each one, like they were watching to see who came to the window. That's when it hit me. Inside the house, we were fully lit. TV on, lamps on. We were visible from anywhere outside. I stepped back from the window. Another firework went off, bigger. The yard lit up long enough to see posture this time. They were facing the house. My mom finally stood. "Okay," she said. "That's enough. Who's out there?" My dad didn't answer her. His eyes stayed fixed on the yard. Then I heard something small and awful, a quiet metal sound, like someone touching the latch. My dad's head snapped toward the gate side of the yard. My mom took a step backward. "Dad," I whispered. This time he didn't dismiss me. He walked to the wall and flipped on the porch light. The yard flooded with yellow light. There was nothing, no person, no movement, just empty grass, patio chairs, fence. He didn't move for a second, like he was daring something to reappear. Then he locked the back door, double-checked it, and turned on every exterior light we had. Porch, side, garage. The house lit up like a warning. He didn't go outside. He told my mom to call the non-emergency line. He told me to go upstairs and stay away from the windows. I did, but slowly. From my room, I could still hear fireworks in the distance. The normal ones, celebration ones, the kind that belonged. Nothing happened after that. No more fireworks behind the fence, no footsteps, no voices. The police never came. The dispatcher told my mom they were overwhelmed and to call 911 if someone actively tried to enter. Like everything before, that didn't count. The next morning, my dad checked the yard in daylight. I watched from the kitchen window. He crouched near the back corner and stayed there for a couple of minutes. When he came inside, he placed a handful of spent fireworks on the counter. Cheap ones, not ours. Then he showed us the gate latch. Fresh scratch marks, like someone had lifted it carefully, quietly, testing how much pressure it took. Nobody said much after that. My parents tried to treat it like a weird annoyance, like something that happened near us, not to us. But something had shifted. I stopped standing near windows at night. I noticed how bright rooms looked from outside. I paid attention to how noise, fireworks, music, celebration could cover smaller sounds. I used to think fireworks meant people were having fun. Now I think about what else they can hide. December had been conferences, holiday chaos, Kids vibrating with sugar and anticipation, and that constant teacher brain loop where you're always 5 steps ahead of the next problem. A friend offered me her family's cabin near the lake. Cheap, quiet, empty for the week. A calm New Year's sounded perfect. Just silence, snow, and the feeling of starting over, somewhere quiet. The cabin looked exactly how you'd expect. Wood-paneled walls, that faint stove smoke smell baked into everything. Boots by the door, string lights around the porch railing. The lake out front was a flat black mirror with scattered cabin lights on the far shore like distant stars. Isolated, but not abandoned. That mattered to me. I got in around 6. Unloaded groceries, put my boots by the door. Lit the stove, checked the thermostat. Checked the locks, front door, side door, backslider. Then checked them again. Rentals sometimes feel secure until they aren't. My phone charged on the counter. I texted my friend a photo of the cabin with a dumb joke. If I get eaten by a bear, I died happy. She replied, "Text me when you're in for the night." I did, around 10:30, all set. Doors locked, being boring. Across the lake, fireworks started early. The sound carried strangely over the water, dull booms that felt weird. I kept the TV on low, mostly for company, and ate soup straight from the pot. Midnight passed quietly. I muted the countdown, sent a couple Happy New Year texts, and watched fireworks flicker faintly through the front window. By 12:30, I was done with the day. I rinsed my mug, stood at the sink, and looked out at the lake. The window reflected the kitchen behind me. Dark water layered over warm light. That's exactly when I heard a sound, like a hand turning something that shouldn't move. A doorknob. My first thought was stupid. Did I lock the wrong door? My second thought landed harder. Someone's checking. I didn't move. My phone was on the counter. I stared at it like it might dial itself. Then I heard it again. A different door. That's when the pattern clicked. Someone moving around the cabin. I shut off the kitchen light instinctively, then immediately hated the decision. Darkness pressed closer. Outside felt heavier. I grabbed my phone and stood in the kitchen where I could see the hallway and the backslider at once. Another knob turned. The backslider handle lifted. Paused. Lowered again, like whoever held it didn't want to make noise. A firework boomed across the lake, and for a second, I hated every stranger celebrating over there. The noise felt like cover, like permission. I stayed still, thinking about how the cabin must look from outside. Bright, warm. One person inside, alone. A glass box. The handle lifted again. Then came the knock. Not on the door. On the window beside it. 2 taps. I whispered no to myself, then called 911. The connection lagged just long enough to feel cruel. "I'm at a cabin near Payette Lake," I said. "Someone's outside trying the doors." The operator asked for the address. I had to read it off a sticky note on the fridge. My hands shook enough that I pressed my finger into the paper to keep it still. She repeated it wrong. I corrected her like I was fixing a student's math mistake. She asked if I could see anyone. I couldn't. Not without going to the window. And I wasn't doing that. Another firework went off. In the quiet after, I heard snow crunch near the porch. I grabbed the heaviest thing nearby, a cast iron pan from the stove. Not heroic, just real. Something solid in my hand. The operator told me deputies were on the way, but the roads were bad. Response would be slow. McCall in winter decides what soon means. I made a decision. I turned on every light in the cabin. Kitchen, hallway, living room, even the lamp by the couch. I wanted the place awake. Loud. Harder to approach unseen. Then I remembered my car. Buried in snow out front, keys on the counter. I hit the panic button. The alarm didn't scream. It beeped, small and muffled by snow. Outside, the crunch moved again, this time away from the porch. I stood there holding the pan, listening to the alarm fade while fireworks popped across the lake like nothing was happening at all. The operator stayed on the line, told me to stay away from windows. Keep the lights on. I did. The deputies arrived after 1, maybe closer to 2. They walked the perimeter with flashlights and radios, tired but focused. They found nothing. No broken locks, no damage. The back slider held. One of them said, "Looks like the lock did its job." I nodded, even though that wasn't the point. In the morning, daylight gave me just enough courage to step outside, and there was a single boot print beneath the window by the slider. One clear impression in the snow. Close enough to lean forward and see inside. Close enough to knock softly and know exactly where the sound would land. I packed up and left that morning. Didn't stay the week. Didn't reset. Didn't finish my book. That night, fireworks were going off across the lake, and all I could think was how easy it is to do something awful when everyone assumes the noise means joy. I stay in hotels enough that I treat them like temporary workplaces. I don't unpack fully. I line things up, wallet in the same pocket, keys clipped to my belt loop, phone charging on the nightstand, face down. Shoes placed so I can step into them without thinking. If something happens, alarm, storm, whatever, I don't want to waste time figuring out what to grab. That week, I was in Rapid City for work. Mid-range chain hotel off the highway. Beige walls, patterned carpet, the kind of place where every floor smells faintly like coffee and cleaning spray. I had meetings the next morning and a long drive after, so New Year's Eve wasn't a celebration. It was just another night with louder neighbors. Through the wall, I could hear a group laughing too hard, music playing low but constant. Doors slamming, someone shouting Happy New Year down the hall. Normal hotel chaos. I showered, laid out my clothes, checked my alarm, 5:30 a.m., and climbed into bed with the TV on low, mostly for background noise. I remember seeing 11:58 on the cable box and thinking, good for them. I'm sleeping through this. At 12:07, the fire alarm went off. This was full volume, sharp, continuous, impossible to ignore. The kind of sound that bypasses thought and goes straight to movement. I sat up, reached for my glasses, and smelled it. Smoke. Not heavy yet, but unmistakable. Acrid. Chemical. Wrong. I didn't hesitate. Wallet, phone, keys, shoes, jacket, muscle memory took over. I cracked the door open and the smell got stronger immediately. The hallway looked blurred, like someone had smeared the air. Smoke hung low under the lights. People were stepping out of their rooms, coughing, squinting, half-dressed. A guy across from me was filming with his phone. Someone down the hall yelled, "Is this real?" I stepped into the hall and oriented myself automatically. Exit stairwell to the right. Elevator and lobby to the left. Smoke was thicker toward the right where the stairwell was, so everyone moved left. That's when I saw the door. 2 rooms down from the worst of the smoke, something large was wedged against a guest room door from the hallway side. At first, my brain tried to mislabel it a cart, luggage, a housekeeping bin. Then I saw it was furniture. Heavy, rectangular, pushed tight enough that the door handle pressed into it. The door couldn't open outward. That detail changed everything. In a fire alarm, people leave their rooms. That's the rule. You open the door and step into the hall. Unless you can't. I stopped without meaning to. People flowed around me, focused on the exit. A woman brushed past and said, "Sir, move," like I was blocking traffic. I stepped closer to the door and knocked hard. "Hey, fire alarm!" No response. I knocked again, louder. "You need to come out." Nothing. The alarm screamed above us. Smoke rolled in waves. I tried the handle, it moved slightly, but the door didn't budge. I pictured someone inside, pushing, confused, not understanding why the door wouldn't open. That image came too easily, and I hated it. Then, the worst thought arrived. What if the door is blocked because someone wanted it blocked? The guy passing by said, "Dude, leave it. Go." I looked toward the smoky end of the hall. Still no flames. No sprinklers. No heat. The smoke didn't behave like a normal fire. It stung, but it wasn't hot. It smelled more like something sprayed then something burning. That's when a maintenance worker appeared. He came out of the smoky end, moving fast, wearing dark work clothes and a radio on his belt. He looked at the crowd, then at the block door. For half a second, our eyes met. He didn't say anything. He stepped back into the haze, just gone. Then the alarm shut off. It just stopped mid-scream, like someone flipped a switch. The silence felt disorienting. The smoke thinned quickly. People slowed, confused. Someone laughed nervously and said, "False alarm." No fire department arrived. No staff rushed the floor. No one took control. It was like the hotel decided the incident was over. I went to the lobby anyway. The front desk clerk looked annoyed more than concerned. He gave the same answer to everyone. Sensor malfunction. Probably hairspray. Happens on New Year's. When it was my turn, I said, there was a door blocked on the 3rd floor. From the outside. Probably guests messing around, he said. People drag stuff out. Did someone check it? I asked. We will, he replied, already looking past me. I went back upstairs. The hallway was clear now. No smoke. Just cracked doors and people whispering. I walked to the room. The furniture was gone, but the carpet told a different story. Fibers crushed and rough where something heavy had been dragged. Scrape marks leading away from the door, like the object had been pulled back quickly, not lifted carefully. I stood there, staring at an empty doorway and disturbed carpet, realizing how easily physical evidence disappears in a place designed to reset itself every day. The next morning, I asked again at the desk. New shift, new clerk, same shrug. Alarm glitch. I left for my meeting, did my job, smiled at clients, drove home. But the night stayed with me, and it wasn't because of the smoke. It's the logistics that won't sit right. Someone knew how to create urgency. Someone knew how people move when alarms go off. Someone knew that crowds flow away from smoke, not toward it. And someone knew exactly which door they didn't want opening while everyone else was being pushed the other way. If I noticed it, others noticed it too. They just kept walking. Someone knew exactly how to make people move and exactly who they didn't want moving. If this video made you realize how easy it is for danger to hide in plain sight, smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss the next scare, and tell me which story stuck with you the most. And if Home Alone nights still feel boring, click now to watch 4 really disturbing Home Alone horror stories. Because silence doesn't mean safety, it means no witnesses. Thanks for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next nightmare.